It's Sunday, therefore it is the Jaden Show. I'm Jaden, Cornelious, your host. Welcome to today's show. If you are a fan of neoclassical and new age music, you are going to absolutely be in euphoria during today's show, because I'm going all the way to the Emerald Isle, to Sunny Island, to meet neoclassical composer Gav Moran. You're going to be listening to him chat in a minute, but you know what? First, we really do need to go and listen to a bit of his music. So grab your cup of tea, sit back, close your eyes, and listen to Letter to Kyiv. This is Gav Moran. Now, I know you are desperate to meet him, but you're going to have to wait a little longer, because we're going for a very quick Jaden Show commercial break. Okay, kids, are you ready? I cannot wait to introduce you to this week's extremely special guest, the amazing Gav Moran. Gav Moran, all the way from the Emerald Isle. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Jaden. It's great to speak to you today. Thank you for having me on here.
My bloody pleasure, mate. I've been listening to your music for the last few days pretty much solidly in my downtime, and it is just amazing. We've just heard Letter to Kyiv, which is, again, super beautiful, and I cannot wait to play Radium at the end of the show. But I want to talk to you about your music and your creations. So,
okay,
if we could start, I want to take you back to like Mini Moran, right? Running around in your diapers in your living room. How did you become like the composer that you are today? What was going on around you musically? You know, tell me.
Okay, well, I came from a very musical family. My father was a singer, but both of my parents were music lovers. So there was like a centerpiece downstairs in our house, which was a kind of the small 3-bed semi that, you know, everybody comes from back where I'm living. Record player was the center of the attention.
Yeah.
Filled with vinyl records. There was things like, so my dad's collection would have been like Buddy Holly and Elvis, and my mother's collection would have been, say, the Beatles. And so we would be, myself and my siblings would be, this is what we've done in our spare time, we'd be pulling these vinyls out. And we, at the time, we didn't know that Elvis wasn't a current singer. We didn't know that Buddy Holly wasn't a current singer. This was just music to us. There was no internet, there was nothing like that. So it was all just music to us. So there was this kind of musical education, I suppose, through all of this 1960s, 1970s music. And so that was the foundation for where, I guess, the love of music would come from. And my memories of being a very young child, like toddler size, with a big giant, 1980s cans in the ears, and sticking on Elvis. You ain't nothing but a hound dog would be on repeat or wherever, because you didn't realise that this music was from decades before. And so you're just absorbing the music that's there. And so it was a musical household, musical family. Like I said, my dad was a singer. Like what we had over here, we had what we call show bands, these big shows that would go on where they would just sing the songs of the day in front of, live bands and orchestral kind of stuff going on. So that was the foundation of where that love of music would have come from.
Did you go to some of his shows? Or was you too young to do that?
I didn't know, because he would have stopped them when we were young, and he stopped doing the singing stuff, because obviously that's a nighttime job. He then focused on his daytime job, just to kind of care for the family, as a lot of people do who work in the music business, because it can take up a lot of time. And if your evenings are filled with having to work in clubs and bars and pubs, that leaves little time for family stuff. So when they took the day job, looked after the family and stuff like that, I suppose from there, taking up, I would have been encouraged to play music and stuff like that. And I was about 6 years old when I started formal piano lessons, and I began my own journey then from there with one-on-one music lessons in that classical piano way.
Because I was going to say, Buddy Holly and Elvis is very different to neoclassical and new age composing that you're known for now. So, but obviously, so at 6 years old, you started doing, and I guess when you were 6, you wouldn't have been playing Adele. It would have been straight into the classical stuff. Did that kind of stick with you then? Was that like, did you all of a sudden just find your niche, or was it just another addition to like your library, your foundation of music?
Okay, well, there was a journey along the way. So yeah, you start at 6 years old, you start formal piano training, and it's like everybody else. It starts with Three Blind Mice. I think everybody starts playing Three Blind Mice or Frere Jacques. I don't know why those two pieces get picked. And then you move on through the grades and through the whole, classical pieces. To me as well, as a fairly young kid, like say if you're 9 years old and you're doing whatever grade you were doing at 9, let's call it grade 3, you're playing Mozart. You don't think that Mozart piece that you're playing is from maybe a couple of 100 years back. It's, again, at that age, it's just music to you. So as I went through it, I was doing the grades. As I get up closer to my teenage years, all of a sudden the piano looked really uncool. When you're 14, maybe 15, piano looks really uncool, or did at the time. And so the dance music scene started to take over, at least in Ireland, probably the same like in the UK. late 80s, early 90s, dance music starts bursting through the scene. When I first, became aware of dance music, I was like, the mind was blown. And I was like, oh my, what is this? What is this music? From Technotronic and these kind of acts that would have been the first major dance acts back in the day. And so, kind of went into DJing. Myself and my friends, we started DJing. The kind of things went like the rave scene kind of kicked off in Dublin in the kind of really early 90s. Got involved in the rave scene, so we were sort of DJing in these dark rooms, basically, where the DJ box in the corner, which is very different from sitting here at the piano, I know. And from there, got into music production because you're DJing and you're playing music. It seems like it's a natural progression to start. You want to make your own music. You're spinning other people's records on a Friday night. Of course, you start thinking, why am I not making something like this? And so music technology started to develop as well. Very early versions of Cubase, which looks very different to what it's like now. Yeah. So using, getting into MIDI sounds and stuff like this, which was all a massive learning curve and very expensive to get into at that time because not everything was in the box. Although you had the likes of Cubase, not everything. VSTs were only starting to be developed and stuff like this. So I actually got into dance music. So I was a dance music producer before I was in neoclassical at all. Went from doing dance music stuff in and out of different genres, picked up a guitar when I was maybe 17 and just because I had been a piano player.
Oh, so you're DJing really quite young then?
Oh, quite young, maybe at 15, 16, 17.
I'm thinking like you're 18, 19 at this particular point.
Yeah,
wow, okay.
Up into that age group I was, but I would have started very young. Yeah, I actually would have been playing in a club from maybe 16 or so, yeah.
Wow.
Because in the rave clubs, if you want to call it that, there was no alcohol. There wasn't that sort of thing going on. Rave culture being a little bit different. There wasn't a bar like you have in the places now. So yeah, going in and DJing was no problem at 16. And I don't know if you've done these. We're in these clubs yourselves back home, but they started at 10 o'clock in the evening and they went on till 6 o'clock in the morning. So it was a full night of dance stuff going on. Yeah, and. You go from there, and then I'm not sure what age I was when I discovered Bob Dylan, and I started listening to Bob Dylan doing his singer-songwriter stuff. And again, it was like it just made some connection with these songs. And for me, I went, that's what I want to do. I want to be a singer-songwriter. Wow. We had a very rich culture of this in Ireland. Some big artists like Damien Rice, and you have these other people. Winning Grammys and even won an Oscar for his his contributions to some of the stuff that he's done. But so that's what I wasn't even considering the neoclassical type stuff. At one stage of my life, I was like, singer-songwriter. So it was the guitar, writing the songs, singing the songs. You just do it for the love of it. Not sure then again, a few years later, watching films, and when you're sitting back and it's the music that's going on in the background is sort of leading you to the emotional part of the movie. It's not what you're watching, it's what you're hearing. I know it's a combination of both, but without that soundtrack going on in the background, what you're visualizing in front of you on the TV screen or in the cinema screen, that's not having that effect without the musical.
It's completely dictating the emotional journey. I've seen this thing on, I don't know if it was Facebook or TikTok, where they changed like the music for the background. So like in this really deep kind of, gritty fight scene, they put this really romantic music on, and all of a sudden it looks so it's just like, okay.
I've seen this clip. It's like so like some sort of a stereotypical stripper type music, and it was like one of the old where these two guys are looking at each other with their tops off. I've seen this one. It's absolutely comical.
The music dictates
so the journey. Yeah, but that's what a clip like that, what you just described. There's the absolute evidence that it's the sound in behind the picture that's pulling you off somewhere, So I was I'm there starting to become aware of this, which previous to that I was just watching films in a passive way. But I did kind of tweak it, and I started to listen to some of the composers, like Johan Johansson done the score for a film called Arrival. Max Richter was doing some stuff. That was in films like Shutter Island and stuff like that. Hans Zimmer, of course, is much bigger sound than those guys, but started to really delve into those type of artists. I kind of just started to think, that's something I can do. I'm from the classical background. I knew a bit about song structure from songwriting, and so I just said, I'm going to just try my hand at making some of these neoclassical pieces. I suppose at the time I didn't even know it was called neoclassical. It was soundtrack music to me.
Yeah.
And I became just completely immersed in it. It was all that I listened to from morning to night. And I still listen to a broad spectrum now of different genres, but 90% of what I listen to is neoclassical. It's such a rich genre, and there's so many people doing it. And it's so big that, like, with the electronic elements that are now coming into it, it takes it off in all of these different directions, and it's a giant-sized genre. I guess if you just say neoclassical to somebody, they probably think of maybe a string quartet or something like that.
Yeah.
But you see some of the artists now. This year I went to see Ludovico Einaudi in Dublin, and so he's sitting at his piano in the middle of the stage, and around him are these drum kits and cellos and violins and synths, and the show was amazing. And it just shows you that it's not aged. It still has its place in the contemporary music world, where you would have metal and rock and rap, and it are such huge genres. There's always space for this thing, and when you see these live shows, it's incredible. And
I got into. Have you heard of Globus?
No,
Globus.
I haven't heard of Globus. No,
but it was kind of classical. Maybe there's kind of a bit of rock flavour in there as well. But it was like an operatic singer with a huge orchestra and like 100-piece choir. But then there would be, like, all of a sudden electric guitar and drums would come in halfway through, but the actual vocal was still very anthemic, classical, and it was just like, oh. I mean, even if you look, like, even if you could break it down so much. Even when Evanescence first came out, you had the album that Bring Me to Life was on. I don't know if that was the name of the album, but I was doing classical music then. I was singing classical and opera, and I remember listening to that and it was Amy Lee, pure classical voice at the time, with this amazing kind of rock background, and I was just like, oh my god, there's just so many different ways you can take classical music. It's unbelievable. Yeah,
because like you described with Evanescence, there's the rock, and there's even some metal in there, isn't there? There's a bit of that was a really kind of a tough sound at the time, I guess. Yeah.
But the vocal, beautiful. Like, she could have gone and done an aria from Madame Butterfly with the same vocal. It's like, really amazing.
And the power that you're talking about when you have this 100-piece choir. When you're sitting in that audience and the sound from this 100-piece choir is hitting you, there's nothing like it. No. And when you have the full orchestra section, and you have bows being pulled across cellos, and it's this very guttural kind of sound that you feel it just as much as you hear it.
Well, so that's the journey. It's quite interesting. When I was doing classical music, I wasn't living in Mexico at the time, but I was singing a lot in Spanish. I was singing in Spanish and Italian, and I used to sing one song in Tagalog as well. And you would get to a stage where I would be in tears. Like, I would feel myself welling up at some part of the song, but it wasn't because I understood what I was singing. I had no idea what I was singing. But the journey, the voice was, for me, it was just another instrument because I didn't understand the lyrical content. So it was another instrument, but the way, like, the violin would just swoop in and everything, I would find myself, like, welling up to my performance, not because I was good, but because what I was listening to was just like, it was just dynamic. It was amazing.
Isn't that an amazing thing? Because if you say you don't understand the lyrical content, but the feeling is still there.
Absolutely,
it's all of these elements working together, and you didn't need to understand the language that's being sung. You know what the feeling is, or sometimes you might superimpose your own idea of what it should be. Anyway,
Absolutely.
I guess, like, say, my feeling or your feeling when you're making a piece of music, somebody else doesn't have to have that exact same feeling, but they're going to transpose what's going on in their life into that
music as well. Absolutely. And also, I guess scientifically, if you break it down as well, then each note has vibrational energy. So, if you're working in this particular, kind of, I don't know, I listen to, like, Hemisync and stuff like that, and I kind of started looking into, like, sound healing. But like, every note has a particular hertz, and that kind of resonates with a particular emotion or chakra or whatever, and all of a sudden, so it does move you, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you want it or not.
Exactly, whether you're aware or not, or whether you want it or not, it's there, and it is that. It's all about the feeling, and that's my love of neoclassical, because some of it does have vocals, but a lot of it doesn't, and so it's just that raw feeling that's there. And like you say, whether you want to feel that or not, you're going to feel it, because it's been flung at you. You know, you're kind of forced to absorb it.
So Gav Moran now is a neoclassical new age composer. How long now have you been this brand of Gav Moran? Like, so what age did you start? How many years have you literally been concentrating on this niche now?
Okay, so I got into it during the COVID year. So exactly when that would be, let me see, would that be maybe 2020? Yeah, 2022 or so, I think. I started to work on musically and complete pieces. My debut album was released my debut album, Broken Pieces, that was released in 2023.
Okay.
So I've been working on it for a couple of years before that. So maybe 2001, 2022. I think they were the kind of COVID years where I would have been really immersed in it, because we all got to not go to work and we all got to focus on other things. And so it's like, okay, so it's like, okay, now it gives me all of this time to start doing this. So the album that was released in 2023, that wasn't my first release. I'd released a couple of singles before that, the year previous to that, but that was a bit of a breakthrough for me. So that was the kind of a few months after that album was released, and started to get a little bit of notice. The first single off that was Letter to Kyiv, and that started to get some notice, started getting a lot of streaming. There's some, it was starting to move the needle a little bit online, and so that's when, like as you say, where this brand comes along. That's I suppose since then, really, the release of that album would have been where the trajectory that led me to where I am now began. And so for me, that was a huge leap forward in the whole musical journey for me, because I had been bouncing from one genre to the next, as I mentioned, in the dance music and the singer-songwriting, but I really found my place in the musical world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely.
I found what worked for me. I found what I loved, and I sort of found myself in this sort of a community of other neoclassical composers, where you'd be, you know, how people are connecting with each other online through Instagram and whatever. And so from there, sort of decided this is where I'm going musically, and I just 100% focused on making this kind of music, and not only making that kind of music, but making sure that I was finishing pieces. A lot of musicians, if they're watching here, will know that one of the biggest problems is finishing a piece of music. We can start a new piece of music every single day of the week. I guess as a musician yourself, you've had this. You can start a new piece, but finishing that's where the difficulty lies. So I did sort of focus on not only starting music, but finishing music, and sort of said to myself, I don't start a new piece of music until a piece of music it's finished. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, because we can all make some musical pieces that aren't as great as some others, but it's getting them finished, and it's building that catalogue, and we don't even have to release everything that we make, but getting them finished has to be the end game, because one completed track beats 100 beginnings of tracks or start to tracks that you're working on.
Completely.
Yeah.
So what is going on for Gav Moran at the moment?
Okay, so there's loads of upcoming releases. So May is actually the 3rd anniversary of the release of the Broken Pieces album. And so what I've done is we've sort of recomposed Letter to Kyiv a little bit, developed out a new extended version of it, and it's going to be released in May for the sort of the 3-year anniversary of the album. So that will be coming out. It comes along with a video. We filmed the recording process with the strings and myself on the piano, and so we've edited all of this stuff together. So it's going to be released with a new video to come with the Letter to Kyiv that shows the process of the recording. So that's coming. We have other releases coming as well. I was part of a big project at the end of last year called Opus, whereby 20 artists came together to make one large piece of music.
Wow.
Where we all so it's available on YouTube. It is on Spotify as well, and it's available on YouTube. So what we done was, if you imagine, like, say, the Live Aid that came about at Christmas, where you have Bono and Bob Geldof and all of these people, and they all kind of sing one line each. Well, 20 different piano artists from around the world contributed 40 seconds to 1 minute of a piece of music. All we were given was the key of the track and the chord progression, and so we all just took that, developed our own piece of music, let's call it a minute long, without hearing what goes before us or after us, and then this thing was all edited together. So that was one, it's a bit like the Live Aid thing for piano, I guess.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a new spin being put on that project. Working with the guys who put that project together, I'm working with them, and there's a new spin being put on that project, and so there's something special coming with that one this year. I have other releases coming myself. There's an EP coming with 3 or 4 different tracks, so completely brand new music, which is coming down the line, and that's going to be released over the summer. Doing 2 shows in Italy at Piano Labs Festival in July.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, also booked in for... It's busy. Also booked in for Piano Revenge Festival in Paris. So there's a good few different bits and pieces going on. It's been a little bit quiet for me release-wise for the last number of months, but I've been working hard. I've been working on these different videos and pieces of music that I'll be ready to sort of get them on out there. And this release cycle starts where new music starts getting released one after the other, and I have lots of new stuff to bring. So it's great to have the stuff that I've been working on quietly kind of in the background gets sort of unleashed a little bit now over the summer.
It sounds amazing. Yeah. It sounds really effervescent, actually. I love it.
Yeah,
it's so much going on.
You know what? You know, when you've been, as an artist, you like to release stuff because obviously, as you're making music, you want to get it listened to by people. You want it in people's ears, so you get that bit of an itch as soon as you have a few pieces made. You get that itch to release them, but if they're part of a larger project, you have to go, no, the time is right when the time is right, when the project is done, and then you can start the release cycle of it. So it's exciting now that I'm coming up to it. Along with, I suppose, the start of the release cycle now will be this, the extended version of Letter to Kyiv, then followed up by these other singles that culminate in an EP to come out in the summer. Yeah. So there is loads going on.
That's great. It's bloody amazing. And future plans, like what are your, I mean, apart from probably bloody nervous exhaustion the way you're going, but like what are your future plans? Where are you taking Gav Moran in the future? What do you want to achieve?
Okay, well, on the back of some of these other shows that I have booked in, I'm looking at other live shows as well. So looking at some other venues around Europe. Would love to get to the UK. Would love to get to Germany. So looking at some possible venues to do some shows there. And making music and releasing music is always my forefront. You know, that comes before live shows, but now that the live shows are kind of kicking off, I'm looking at developing that side because it's nice just to get out there and play our songs live for people who want to hear them. And there's no greater compliment than somebody spending their time getting to a venue and sitting there and actually absorbing what you do. And I've done it so many times where I'm sitting in the audience listening to some artist that I've admired for a long time. So knowing that people are getting a ticket in the hand and coming to see me do that, it's the biggest compliment I could ever get. Yeah.
But well bloody deserved, not only because of the effort you've put into your art and craft for all this bloody time, but the fact that your stuff is really beautiful. I mean, it's just really amazing music. So,
well, thank you. It's lovely to hear that because knowing that you make that connection, isn't it incredible the way that you can do it now across the world? That would have been difficult even 15 years ago. I mean, 20 years ago, it was unheard of. But to be able to make that connection with people in different continents around the world that really would have never been able to hear your music before. Yeah. So it's all about that musical connection.
It's quite interesting. I was talking to someone a couple of months ago about this. You know, like back in the day when I was signed to BMG as in a pop group in the 90s, like if you wanted people in Leeds to hear you, you had to slog it up to Leeds, like 5-6 hour in a back of a Ford Fiesta with all your stuff. Do a 3-song PA in a dodgy ass nightclub where everyone was either too drunk or too eat off their face to even remember what you were doing, and do that several times. So eventually they got to know, even if it's just by seeing the adverts, you know, like this Friday we have Beyond on, you know, and that was it. And then now I said I've done 3 studio albums. Now I can be doing a Jaden show, produce it, go for a wee, and in the time I've gone for a wee, I've just sold an album in Ethiopia. Like, how does that work? Isn't
it amazing? It's great. No, people will always talk about the negative sides of technology, but isn't that the absolute positive sides of technology?
Yeah, crazy.
And what you described there, going around in the back of the Ford Fiesta, I guess at the time that was probably for you living the dream. And like my DJing days, to promote the gigs, I remember walking up and down the street with flyers, like with printed flyers, and we're handing them to people on the street. A bit like what I don't know if they still do that in the Spanish resorts, like Benidorm and that, where they would try and pull you into places. But it was basically like that.
I still give out flyers at my shows now.
Sorry, say again.
I still give out flyers at my shows.
Oh, you still do the flyers? Right? Yeah, that still exists. It's great. Yeah, because that's the real old school way of promotion, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's building up a fan base and a network base and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know why I'm doing it, but I still do. But it's also because it connects you as well to the people, right?
Well, it does. It does make it personal. If you're literally handing something to somebody out in the street, it makes that personal connection. But on the technology side, though, like you say, you've gone off for a few minutes and you've come back and you've seen that you've sold an album across the world and maybe in a country that you've never even heard of.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
Bizarre. It's brilliant.
Bizarre. But I was put on my social media this week actually that because when I done the majority of my pop stuff back in the day, it was people with handheld VHS cameras if they had the money to afford one. So that's the only thing I regret is the fact there are very little memories of my musical journey, back in London in the 90s, because it was an amazing time. But people didn't have mobile phones at all. I never saw a mobile phone. You had a big ass banner saying, "Jaden, we love you, Gemma, Emma, Julian, Bell." It was like that was it. There was nothing internet.
Isn't it? It's slightly sad, isn't it, that you've done all this thing, and yet that because everything now, everybody's life seems to be so documented using mobile phones and stuff, that you've done all of these things, and yet you don't have something that you can stick in the DVD player or pull up on your computer to look back and go, look, there I am in my prime, up on stage doing my thing. But that's the sign of the times in the even in the 1990s, which doesn't seem to me to be that long ago. No. But the technology didn't exist. Yeah, you mentioned, people with camcorders or stuff like this, but people putting tapes into video cameras to record stuff. Yeah. So it was only people with a lot of money who had these as well.
Yeah. So, I was quite lucky. I had a lot of stuff on VHS that I managed to get someone to put onto MP4 for me a couple of years ago. But then it's all kind of like shaking and grainy, and it's just. I put it all up on my YouTube anyway, just because it's
no filters
me than anyone else. But no, we live
no filters.
Like now, it's amazing. You literally can. I say just get your music. You could write a piece today and get it out on release tomorrow.
Not only that, but you can pull out your phone and you can make a professional looking video using your phone and edit the thing and cut it down and put the filter on it and do all that in an afternoon. Where you may have had to have a team of people in the 1990s to put this thing together.
A lot of money.
And a lot of money. Money was I guess back in the day, money was probably the biggest barrier to entry for a lot of people, because nowadays there's a recording studio basically on your mobile phone. If you really wanted to, you could record something on your mobile phone. There's also a video editing suite. All of this stuff just did not exist. So the barrier to entry was, how could you get into a studio? Yeah. I did back in when me and a friend of mine started to produce dance music back in probably the mid-90s. We'd have to go in and hire a studio for the day, and it took us at the time 3 days to make one dance track, and it was pretty expensive. We would save up for months and get into the studio for 3 days over 3 consecutive Saturdays and finish up with a dance track. But my God, that's a time-consuming process.
No, completely. And I mean, we were lucky. We had a lot of producers, and that actually believed in us. So we never paid for studio time. But if we'd been a new band starting out now, it would have been, because now nobody does nothing for nothing. People had faith. Exactly. People had faith. Oh no, you're going to be the next best thing. Right, we're going to get you in the studio and we're going to do this. And we had the big reel-to-reel tapes, and where someone would sit on the back with loads of bits of tape and scissors and sellotape, splicing and putting everything together. And now to get someone to even do a quick demo that's just sufficient for YouTube or as a dry vocal for a collaboration in another country, you're paying a fortune.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a whole different environment now.
It really is, but I think that's the onus is now on us or anybody else as a musician. You sort of have to become the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
You have to become the producer, and you have to be the video editor and the content creator and all of these things. When you talk about kind of snipping up the tape, the amount of effort that was involved in that is actually incredible. That somebody can sit there and do that, and yet and all they had belief in people, and so they would invest their energies into doing that.
Yeah.
I guess nowadays. Maybe, I mean, there's such a large pool of people now trying to break into music, producing and creating music that, I guess, instead of the finances being the barrier to entry, it's just the sheer volume of people that are slinging stuff out there could be the barrier to entry.
Well, I remember going, obviously, when we were starting up, we were going to different A&R guys' offices. And, you'll sit in offices and there were just sacks and sacks and sacks of demo cassettes. Like all brightly coloured, bloody bits of tinsel on some, just you wanted to make it as noticeable as possible.
Yeah.
And I remember someone saying to me, I think it was something like, so 220,000 cassettes were received a year. And that was I don't know if that was in all the A&R offices together or just in one. But there were sacks and sacks and sacks and sacks of cassettes, and less than 220 people actually got a record deal a year. I was lucky. I got 2 record deals, not 3 record deals. But
you done well at the time. But just I guess even to find to get your music to the ear of the A&R guy at the time in this pool of 220,000 it's a needle in a haystack, isn't it?
Bloody miracle, mate, absolutely. Whereas now you can literally be an artist in your own back room. But I think now as well, it was quite interesting when I started doing classical crossover. I was still young, I was still kind of pretty-ish, so I was still kind of cutting it, and it was a nice song, and I thought, I covered this song, got a video made which was very basic and cost me a lot of money, but I couldn't afford like a proper video company, and then I went to look on YouTube at other people singing this particular song, so I was really chuffed that I put my song out there with a video and I had something like 500 hits, 500 hits in a couple of days. There was this one guy singing and he had over 1 million hits. It'd only been up for 2 months.
Okay.
And I thought, right, he's got to be amazing, man. So I listened to him. That boy could not carry a tune in a bucket, but he was fucking good looking, sitting there topless with a 6-pack.
There you go. That sells, doesn't it?
I was like, I'm doomed. Like, I can never do it. This is it.
You needed to work on the 6-pack and take the top off and then get in front of that camera.
This is my plan for my future now. Because I'm getting older. I'm in my my early 50s, and I don't want to be a weak old man. So I'm doing it more for me than I am for. If it helps TikTok viewers, then that even better. But I refused to do it back in the day because I was always very insecure, so I never knew if people actually liked the music because it was the music they liked, or like I was talking to a friend, actually it was Mark, who was on last week's show, and we were kind of just chatting. He was a DJ in a club when I was in my pop band, and I knew him because my band done a PA at his club. So it's quite interesting now that he's making music through artificial intelligence, and he's writing books and stuff like that, and he's doing he's a really creative and a really lovely man. But we were just chatting about like I really could have got so much further if I had shown a bit more flesh or got on a couple of sofas in a few offices. My even before that, my rights up, Jaden's going to be Britain's biggest export, is going to be bigger than George Michael. But I was too insecure to do anything that I would never know. Did people like me because I'm nice and because I can sing, or did people like me because I got on that sofa?
It's one of the things, as the artist, you always want to be a purist and have it to be about the art.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess, isn't it? And it's still true of today that there has to be multiple elements going on because to catch that and to catch people's attention and to keep that.
Absolutely, it's different now. So, producers out there, if there are any sofas available, I'll do anything now.
Give me the sofa. Yeah.
So, international neoclassical success with thousands of releases. This is your future. Sounds amazing, mate.
Oh yeah, bring it on. Yeah.
Bloody wonderful. So and obviously getting your music into some films and TV shows and series on Netflix and HBO would be bloody lovely.
Oh, it would be amazing. It would be amazing. I've done the soundtracks for a couple of short films last year and the year before, and so that was bespoke soundtrack. But even just to get one of the cinematic kind of sounding tracks to stick on Netflix someday and see one of my own tracks up there. Of course, that has to be. It's amazing to see that, because music to picture is it's not necessarily the end goal, because it's not what you make it for, but it's just such a. Yes, it is. It has such a powerful impact. That's just what you want to see. Of course, 100%. Yeah.
No, amazing. Well, I wish you ultimate success in everything you do. You're a lovely guy, but desperately talented, mate. And I am a new fan. So, like when things happen, you bloody tell me, and we'll do some specials and let the people know what's going on. Where can they find you on social media? Because you're kind of everywhere, really, aren't you?
Oh yeah, so of the same social media handle across them all. So it's Gav Moran Music everywhere. Just Gav Moran Music, all over the place on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. Always the same handle. And thank you for the nice words that you've said. I really appreciate them coming from you.
You're more than welcome, mate. Where are you most active? What social media are you most active on, would you say?
I'm most active on Instagram. For me, Instagram seems to be the one that I know TikTok is a huge thing for certain genres of music, but for me, Instagram seems to be the place where I'm most comfortable making the kind of content that suits Instagram. So that is where I'm most active, is Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, people at home, you've met him, you love him, you obviously want to follow him. So before you finish your cheese sandwich and your cup of tea, make sure you go and check out Gav Moran Music on all of his social media platforms as well. Go and show our brother some love and some support. Gav, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it, and we will stay in touch.
We will do, 100%. Thank you for chatting to me. It's been lovely, and 100% we'll stay in touch, and I'll let you know what's going on.
Bloody lovely, mate. You take care. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. You too.
Bye, mate. What a wonderful show, and there's still a little bit more music to come. We are going to listen to Radium on the way out. Please go and follow him. Please go and show him some love. Go and download his track. He's also, his music is available on all major download and streaming platforms, as well as SoundCloud. You can go and check him out there. Make sure you're following him on his plethora of social media platforms too. Get in touch with him and tell him how much you appreciate his music. That would be amazing. Please, while you're on the computer, subscribe to this channel. Tell all your friends about this show. Share it. Comment, like, do everything you can. I cannot wait to be back with you next week for another incredible The Jaden Show. I will see you then. I'm going to leave you with Gav Moran and Radium. Take care. Big hugs.